These piles here are just a disaster waiting to happen. Oh boy. Hello everybody, my name is Brandon. Welcome back to the channel. I am here today with a video I'm really excited about. I am going to share with you my entire Scream Factory collection. So I own a good number of Blu-rays, I own some DVDs. I'm going to showcase them to you guys just so you can see what I have. Make note, this is not my entire collection of Shout Factory and Scream Factory. This is more specifically my Scream Factory things. Like, for example, up here, I have like Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai, which is a Shout Selects. So I do have some Shout Factory things in here because they are horror or cult or sci-fi themed. But typically speaking, this is really going to be about my Scream Factory collection, which I don't have a ton of Shout Factory outside of maybe a couple Shout Selects that are behind me that I don't remember. But yeah, so I am just really excited to dive in. I have a lot to show you. Just like I talked about with my 4K collection, I'm not doing this because I think I have a huge collection. I think I have the largest collection. Nothing like that. I'm not doing it to brag about anything. I've bought these over the years. Ever since Scream Factory was introduced in 2012, I've been buying the releases. Not all of them, of course. And much like my 4K video, a ton of these I have not watched. And that's just the way it is. You'll notice that I like to buy movies. I like to buy video games. I like to buy books. I like to buy things and then not finish them or not complete them or whatever the case may be. And you'll notice that theme continuing here. But yeah, so hopefully you guys will enjoy looking through my collection. I am going to do it one at a time, just like I did with my 4K movies, because I just can't film where they live. I will give a shot of where they normally live, which is basically like not underneath my stairs, but next to my basement stairs. There is some cabinets that my grandfather built. They are housed in there, which is not my ideal situation, but you know, everybody has to work with what they have. And so that's what I do with these. So if I have nothing to say about a movie, I'll just show it and move on. If I do have something, I'll talk about it a little bit, but you're not going to get real long thoughts. I'm going to go through this as quickly as possible because I have over 100 movies to show. So without further ado, let's dive right in. So first I want to go through my DVDs. I only have about 8 DVDs that I want to show. But first up is Piranha. So this is one that I bought before I even really knew who Shout Factory was. This is, as you can see, Shout Factory versus Scream Factory. And this is cool because you can't see it on camera, I don't think, but maybe you can. It has this lenticular cover, which is just awesome. This movie I actually put on once a long time back, and I ended up falling asleep, so I never actually finished this one. But yes, Piranha on DVD. And now I have a bunch of 4 movie pack collections. So this one has Cyclone, Alienator, Exterminator 2, and Eye of the Tiger. I haven't watched any of these. I don't know anything about them, but I loved collecting these 4 movie packs for a while there. So I have a bunch of these coming up. And I'm going to try to do this with as few cuts as possible. But we have Invasion of the B-Girls. This is the 4 Cult Movie Marathon Volume 1. So Invasion of the B-Girls, The Devil's 8, Unholy Rollers, and Vicious Lips. This one is the All-Night Horror Marathon. I think this is Volume 1 because it doesn't say. So this has What's the Matter with Helen, The Godsend, The Vagrant, and The Outing. The All-Night Horror Marathon Volume 2 with Cellar Dweller, The Dungeon Master, Contamination Point 7, and then Catacombs. The 4 Sci-Fi Movie Marathon, which has Arena, which is the reason I bought it, to be frank. Eliminators, America 3000, and The Time Guardian. These were cool, these TV Terror 2-pack. This has The Initiation of Sarah and Are You in the House Alone? Have not watched either of these, but I think the idea is that these are made for TV horror movies, so that's always fun. This is one of the early ones when I first started collecting these Shout Factory and Scream Factory movies. This is the Slumber Party Massacre collection. These are available on Blu-ray. Oh no! All's well. All's well. I just got to put it back in. You can see the top that's broken. I never realized that. I don't know when that happened, but either way, the movies are fine. So the Slumber Party Massacre collection, a very cool set. All right, so that was all my DVDs. Now we're going to jump over to the Blu-rays. Another 2-pack. This is Visiting Hours and Bad Dreams. Another 2-pack, Frogs and The God of the Foods. The Food of the Gods, rather. I have a number of these double features. This is Ghost House and Witchery. The Dunwich Horror and Murder in the Rue Morgue. The Video Dead along with Terror Vision. And that's all my 2-packs. So the rest are like regular sets, I guess, if you will. So we have the Amityville Horror Collection. This is Amityville 1, 2, and 3D which I love the first one. I love the book. I read that, I think it was last year. Fantastic. Just a ton of fun to read. And so I do want to get through this entire series. I actually want to pick up Vinegar Syndrome has basically the rest of them, except for I think there's one that's missing, but has most of the rest of them in a set. And I really want to pick that one up soon. Assault on Precinct 13. This is a John Carpenter classic. This movie is so fantastic. The first time I watched it was thanks to this Blu-ray, and it's just so good. I absolutely love this movie. And since I had this up here, and this is really the first one with it, I will talk about the fact that I am a fan of the slip covers. Normally, which I don't know if this one offered it, but normally what I'll do is I'll use this slip cover, and then I will typically flip it around, which I just didn't do on this one, to have the original cover art on the front. So let me correct that right now so you guys can see it. There we go. I love having the original cover art. That's so cool. But yeah, so slipcovers, I know that kind of brings up some controversy in the community. Some people think they're ridiculous. Some people love them. I am one of the people that really enjoy them. I wish that all of my 4K movies had slipcovers because the vast majority of them do, but some don't. And it's just annoying. I want them all to have them, but I'm not going to go out and buy a slipcover by itself. I'm not that crazy, but I do like having my slipcovers. Next up is a horror film, The Babadook. This is a more modern film with an amazing slipcover. Speaking of slipcovers, this film is so good. I think it's so just creepy and well done. I really enjoyed it. Backcountry. This is people get lost in the woods and have to basically survive. There is a bear that's basically after them. I thought this one was okay. I had higher expectations. All right. I thought it was going to be better than it was when I went into it, but I still thought it was fine. I enjoyed it well enough. We have Bad Moon, and this is one I watched for the Cinefessions podcast, not for the main part of the show, but one of the extras. And I thought it was really good. I enjoyed it. I don't think I loved it. I want to say I gave it like 2.5, 3 stars, and that was out of 4 at that time. But I thought it was a well-done werewolf film. We have The Battery, which is a low-budget zombie movie. Black Christmas, and this is the original. I know this one has not been opened, but I have seen this movie, and I love this movie. It is fantastic. It is so much better than the remake. It's awesome. I love this movie. Blood-Sucking Bastards, which I bought for super cheap on one of their sales. Body Bags, which is an anthology film with shorts directed by John Carpenter and Tobe Hooper. I've actually not seen this one yet, which is weird because it's a Carpenter film, but haven't gotten to it yet. The Burning, which is a really fun slasher film that has George Costanza in it, which is just, I mean, fantastic. I really like this slasher. I think it's a really well done one, and the Scream Factory release here is really good. There's a lot of great special features, and the picture quality just looks fantastic. Candyman, Farewell to Flesh, which has some sale stickers on it, so obviously I haven't opened this one yet. I've actually not seen this. I've only seen the original Candyman, which I watched again recently and loved even more than I did the first time, or the first like 3 times I've seen it. But there is a review for Candyman on Cinefessions.com, so check that out if you're interested. Cat People, another collector's edition that I have not opened up yet, have not seen this movie. Yeah, that whole as few cuts as possible thing was a complete joke because that's just not how I roll. Cherry Falls, which is a stupidly fantastic 90s slasher film that is completely underrated. I loved this movie. We watched it for the Cinefessions podcast, and I think it was one person away from entering into the Cinefessions Hall of Fame at the time. It's so good. If you have not seen this movie, you are missing out. It's just, if you like slasher films, you'll enjoy this movie. Class of 1984, another special edition that I have not opened yet. I keep saying special editions. They're collector's editions, excuse me. Dark Angel with Dolph Lundgren. George A. Romero's The Dark Half, which I hate myself when I come to movies that are directed by some of my favorite directors like John Carpenter or George A. Romero, and I haven't seen them. And this falls into that category, so I need to correct that. Dark Man, which is just an awesome little film. It is basically like a horror superhero film from the early 90s, I believe it is, but it stars Liam Neeson as the titular Dark Man. It has Frances McDermott, right? That's how you say her name? Frances McDormand, excuse me, who's from Fargo, and it's directed by Sam Raimi with music by Danny Elfman. I mean, that's ridiculous. Like, you have to see this film if you've not seen it. It is absolutely worth your time. It's so much fun. I think this is the one. Yeah, this is one where I switched the slipcover or I used the slipcover for the new art, and then the original poster usually is what it is on the inside. I love the original poster, though. It's great. I always cite the Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 2003 as one of the main reasons I will always give remakes a chance because I loved that film. 2004's Dawn of the Dead is another one of those reasons. that I will always give remakes a chance. And I tend to really enjoy remakes just on a whole. This movie's fantastic. I actually saw this in theaters, and I saw it before I had seen the original Dawn of the Dead. So that's probably one of the reasons I loved it so much, which I absolutely love the original too. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying the original is probably better, I guess, but I love them both. So it's silly to even try to compare them. But yeah, 2003, 2004 was just the time I was going to the theater all the time because I graduated high school in 2004. And so I just had I was working, so I had a lot of cash to spend, basically. I loved horror movies, and so I was going all the time. And Dawn of the Dead is just one that stands out to me so much. That opening scene, it's like an overhead shot with the cars running away from the zombie or driving away from the zombies. And then there's the accident. Oh, it's just so awesome. I always remember that from the first time I saw it. And it's just such a great film. So I've not opened this one yet, but I love this movie very much. So Dawn of the Dead from 2004, the collector's edition of this one. Day of the Dead, collector's edition. So this is the original by Romero. And there are reviews on Cinefessions.com of like the original cycle that Romero did. So you have, Night of the Living Dead, Dawn, Day, whatever, Diary, Land. I think that's all 5. Or Survival, I think, is the last one. And so all of those they have reviews on Cinefessions.com, so you can check those out if you want. But Day of the Dead, I think, is one of the most underrated in the series. I enjoyed the hell out of this movie. I love kind of the labyrinth that they go through toward like the second half of the film. I think it's just so much fun. Here's the original art on the inside with the new commissioned art on the outside. I do own this in poster form because I absolutely love it. It's not a full size poster, but it's like one of those smaller ones, but it's awesome. I love that poster. Deadly Blessing, and this will go into that group I was talking about earlier, where it's a film directed by one of my favorites, Wes Craven in this case, that I have not seen yet. Deadly Eyes. You can see these FYE stickers. Man, I never shop at FYE anymore because it's so expensive. So it's crazy to see some of these FYE stickers. And there's only one that's within like a 100-mile radius of me because they're all shutting down. But anyway, Deadly Eyes. So my collection is such that I didn't even realize I owned this. They just re-released this. This one was really hard to find for a while, but they re-released it. They reprinted it, I guess. And so you can pick it up, I assume, at right now, because I don't imagine it's sold out again. But this is Deathstalker 1 and 2. And these are like, I don't know if Sword and Sorcery is right. I guess that's right. Very Conan-esque. I think it's like Italian films that are just supposed to be fun. So I picked these ones up, and I didn't realize I had it. So I'm excited now that I know I own these again. So I definitely got to give these a shot. The Doctor and the Devils, which is based on, I think their names are Burke and Hare, which are real life grave robbers. So that's what this is based on. Dog Soldiers. This was another one that we did for the Cinefessions podcast, and I love this movie. I think I was the only one who liked it as much as I did amongst the group. That's when Chris was still in it. This is another one. Why didn't I turn this around? Look at that original cover art. That's fantastic. But yeah, this was when it was still Chris, Ash, and I, and we were going through all of Neil Marshall's films, and this was one of them, and I loved his filmography. This one was one of my favorites from his filmography. I really loved The Descent as well, of course, but Dog Soldiers is such a great werewolf film, and it's done on such a low budget. The Scream Factory release of it had a ton of controversy when it was released because people were complaining about, like, I believe it was the film grain was the biggest issue. There was so much of it that it just didn't look that great. I honestly didn't have an issue with it when I watched it. Yes, there's a ton of film grain, but yeah, it is what it is. I think, it's probably the best I've seen the film, at least, because my old copy was just the DVD version, and this looks better than that, so yeah, it is what it is. I'm not a visual snob when it comes to things like that. So another Cinefessions podcast episode, Dolls. We did a Scream Factory arc, so a number of these were done through the podcast. I find dolls creepy in general, and so if you have living dolls, it's even creepier. That's one of my biggest phobias, which is why Night of the Living Dummy always scared me as a kid. But this film is just kind of dumb. I don't know. I wouldn't recommend purchasing this one. Definitely watch it first. It has, cult aspects to it, so you might enjoy it, but I can't say it was really one of my favorites. Then we have John Carpenter's Escape from New York. This is another one I watched for the podcast and absolutely loved it. I mean, it's just so much fun. Just a fun 80s action film. Like, what more could you ask for? I really enjoyed it. Evil Speak. Exterminators of the Year 3000. This is definitely a Mad Max ripoff. Final Exam, another slasher film from the 80s. John Carpenter's The Fog, which probably my least favorite Carpenter film that I've seen. I know that's probably going to get me some hate, but whatever, it's just an opinion. You can love it and that's totally fine. I did not like this one. It's one I definitely want to give a second chance. You can see this version is still sealed. I don't even know why I bought it because I'd seen it before I purchased this, but it's a Carpenter film, so I wanted to own it on the best format possible. So, From Beyond, which is another film we watched for the Cinefessions podcast, and this movie is just bonkers as all hell. It is extremely gory and just crazy, which it's directed by Stuart Gordon, who did Reanimator, and then it's produced by Brian Yuzna, who does Society, which is a film that I've heard amazing things about, which it's actually behind me here, but I've not seen it yet. So those two people are just known for their crazy gore effects, and this does not disappoint at all. And it also has Barbara Crampton in it, who is just fantastic. So this is one I highly recommend if you've not seen it. Tobe Hooper's The Fun House, which is another one I need to see still. One of the original releases from Scream Factory, not the first. I think it was Halloween 3, Halloween 2, and then maybe The Fun House, but don't quote me on that. I'm just going off memory. It was early, whatever the case may be. The Funhouse Massacre, another cheap one I bought from them, more recent film, know nothing of it, but it was like $5 when I bought it, so I figured I'd pick it up. Arguably one of the worst films we've watched for the Cinefessions podcast, The Garbage Pail Kids. This movie is just terrible. It is a bad movie. Another one I totally forgot I owned, Ghost Story. This is based on the Peter Straub novel, which was one of the first real long horror books I ever read back when I was in grad school. And it is such a fantastic book, one of my favorites. And so I really wanted to watch the movie, but I didn't own it until I purchased it here and then just forgot about it. So I need to watch that this year. Ginger Snaps, which you can see this one is sealed, but I have seen this one. It's fine. I don't really know why I bought it because it's another one I don't love and one I'm annoyed that I don't have a slipcover for. But yep, Ginger Snaps, a good werewolf film. Gravy, which is a film that Chris picked for me to watch on the podcast for, again, not the main part of the episode, but like the end of the episode. And this movie was actually significantly better than I ever expected it to be. It's much better than it has any right to be. It's just insane. So I don't want to go through and explain any of these movies, but check it out, the synopsis. If it sounds interesting to you, it probably won't, but give it a shot anyway. You can probably pick this up super cheap. And honestly, I think it's worth it. It is just a batshit crazy movie that is a lot of fun. And then we were talking about the originals. I have Halloween 2 and Halloween 3. Halloween 3, of course, nowadays has had a resurgence. Everyone respects it for the film that it is. Halloween 2 is another movie I really enjoy. I don't think it's as good as the first one, obviously, but I like it quite a bit. So both of these releases are fantastic. I never really saw a reason to purchase these again because these copies, they do the films justice. They are fantastic looking. We have The Harvest, Hellhole, Hellions, which I was actually staring at this for about 3 minutes because I cannot remember if I've seen this or not. I didn't watch this version because it's sealed, but there was a movie that was, if it's not this, it was incredibly similar that I watched for the podcast, but I can't remember if it was this one or not. This is going to be a long one because we are only halfway through, or if you want to look at it glass half full, we are halfway through. Next up is The Howling, which is another one we watched for the podcast. You can check out my full thoughts on that episode, which I haven't the slightest idea which episode number it is, but another one with the awesome original cover underneath. The Incredible Melting Man, which is actually a Barnes & Noble sticker, which is crazy. I bought a movie from Barnes & Noble, but another Carpenter film that I cannot believe I have to admit I haven't seen yet, but it is In the Mouth of Madness. This is one that I absolutely must watch soon because it's ridiculous that I haven't seen it yet. Invasion of the Body Snatchers. This version is sealed, but one of the absolute greatest sci-fi films probably ever. This is such a classic. I love this movie. As much as I love the original as well, like both of them, this is just such a good story, and it's done so well here, and it's done so well in the 1950s original. It's just such a fantastic film. I think it's the 50s original, but I'll correct myself here if I'm wrong. But yeah, it's fantastic. So definitely worth checking this movie out if you've avoided it for whatever reason. James Spader in Jack's Back, which I don't really know much about this one, but Lake Placid, a movie I have not seen since I was very young and don't remember too much about it when I watched it then. One thing I do remember about Lake Placid was that one of the Olympics that were held in the U.S. was at Lake Placid, and so I always connected this movie with the Olympics in my head when I was young. So apparently I still do because I'm talking about it now. But yeah, Lake Placid. Land of the Dead, which I like this film too. Not the strongest, which I love this cover art. Not the strongest in the series, obviously, but I think it does what it needs to do quite well. I enjoyed it, and there's just some really fun cameos in it, so I like this movie. Then we have the Larry Fessenden collection. So this has a number of movies on it. It looks like 4 movies on it, and I always think of Wendigo, because I remember when I was younger, which this video is already too long, but I remember when I was younger, my friend wanted to rent a movie from Blockbuster. We went there and he found this movie that I believe it was Wendigo. I have no idea if that was actually it or if it just had a Wendigo creature in it. And it was just, I was so mad that he wanted to rent it because it looked terrible. And then he rented it and it was absolutely atrocious. At least I thought so at the time. And I just always wondered to myself, is it this movie? Is it this Wendigo? I genuinely don't know, but I need to watch this to find out, because I can picture like the creature in the middle of a street in the dark. This had to be at the beginning of the movie. I don't know if we watched the whole thing or not, but it was just so stupid. And I don't know if it was this or something different, but that's my Larry Fessenden story. You're welcome. Life Force, which of course is known for the naked lady throughout the majority of the film. This is another Tobe Hooper movie. Lord of Illusions, which is interesting because we actually have a lost episode of the Cinefessions podcast, and it is a Clive Barker like retrospective, if you will. We go through all of Barker's horror films that he directed and whatever, reviewed them, discussed them, whatever you want to call it. And this was one of those, but the episode didn't record. We were using a certain program at the time, and something happened where it just didn't record. And so we couldn't do anything about it. We just didn't have a recording of it. So we never went back and redid it. So maybe that's something I'll do for the channel here in the future. But if you want to see that, definitely let me know down in the comments below. Lords of Illusions, I don't remember too much about it. That was probably 4 or 5 years ago, 6 years ago now that we did that, tried to film that episode. And I just don't remember too much about it, to be honest. But I remember not truly loving any of the movies of the Clive Barker retrospective that we were going to do. But who knows? Maybe I'll like this one better on the next time through. The original Mad Max, this was one that you can get for like $5 at Walmart if you're lucky. Well, you could, not now. I think I bought this for like $10 at Best Buy, though. I don't love this movie. I really just didn't think it was that great the first time I watched it, the only time I've watched it, and I only picked it up because it was a super cheap collector's edition from Scream Factory, which I was collecting, which honestly, I have not bought a Scream Factory collector's edition or anything Scream Factory in probably 2 years now. It's been a long time. So I'm going to actually talk about at the end a couple that I know I want to pick up. But yeah, Mad Max, Manhunter, another Romero I haven't seen, Monkey Shines, Motel Hell, which is some fantastic cover art, The Nest, Nightbreed, another Clive Barker film, and another one I didn't love the first time I watched it, but I want to give it another shot. Night of the Comet, Night of the Demons, another one that we watched for the podcast, and it's Night of the Demons. It's ridiculous, it's silly, but it's gory and it's fun. Another podcast one, which I see like I sound like an idiot. I just keep saying from the podcast, but we watched a ton of Scream Factory releases on the podcast apparently, or at least I did. So Ninja 3: The Domination. This movie is fantastic. I remember we were watching this for one of the episodes, and it was the night before we were recording, and my power went out, and I hadn't watched it yet. So I actually, fortunately, my laptop at the time still had a DVD drive, so I was able to watch this on DVD through my laptop in order to do the episode the next night. So yeah, Ninja 3 Domination is just over the top, ridiculous, and so much fun. I cannot recommend this enough if you like just cheesy, crazy 90s shit. Like, this is awesome. And by 90s, I mean 80s, of course. Werner Herzog's Nosferatu, the Vampire. Yeah, Nosferatu, the Vampire. Another cheap one I purchased from them, a more recent one, Over Your Dead Body. The People Under the Stairs, which I always remember this from my childhood. I've never watched it, but there was a book that I've owned for the longest time. And of course, now that I'm like collecting novelizations, I don't have it anymore. But yeah, The People Under the Stairs always sticks out in my head just because of the novelization I owned as a child. But have to see this one still. Phantom of the Paradise, and this one I picked up because it was raved about by Mark. He absolutely loves this, so I wanted to give it a shot. John Carpenter's Prince of Darkness. Prison, another early one in the Scream Factory outings. Psycho 2, which, again, for the podcast, we did an entire Psycho retrospective or series arc, as we called them on the show. Psycho 2, I think, is really, really good. Much better than it should be. So definitely check this one out if you've not seen it. Pumpkinhead, another podcast episode. This movie is good, not great. I think the creature effects are awesome. The story is okay, and the way it comes together is fine. Not one I'd rush out to purchase, but if you can watch it streaming first, try that, see if you love it. And then this release of it does a really good job with all the special features, which you probably can't read, but and the picture quality just looks fantastic. So worth owning if you like the film. And I'll say the same for Pumpkinhead 2, Blood Wings. Q, the Winged Serpent. I really need to see this. All right, it's my last stack. First up is The Return of the Living Dead, which is another one. I don't know. I've watched so many of these, but have not watched like this version of these. But anyway, Return of the Living Dead, another movie I really enjoy. Not my favorite like it is. I think this is one of Ash's favorite films from the podcast, but you know, I like it. Robot Jocks, which if you are a follower of Smarmy Jerkface on Twitter, he is a part of the Bad Movie Fiends podcast, and Robot Jocks is one of their favorites that they always talk about. Their rating system is based off of how many jocks they're going to give. And yeah, so I had to pick it up for that reason. It was exactly what I thought it was going to be. You know, it's from 1990, and it's these big old creatures, these big old robots that are fighting each other that are manned. It's kind of like a smaller version of Pacific Rim, except they're not fighting kaijus, they're fighting each other. I don't know. It's just stupid and it's fun. So it's definitely, I can definitely see why the Bad Movie Fiend podcast has put this up there as one of their favorites. And I think it's worth seeing, if not worth owning. The Sentinel. I think this one has ghost rape in it, which is just weird. The Serpent and the Rainbow. Another one I absolutely need to see and have not yet. One of my faves, Session 9. This is another one we did on the podcast, so check that out if you want my full thoughts. But this movie is just a perfect example of a psychological horror film because it just messes with your mind as much as it does the characters. This one is not a special edition or a collector's edition, but there are a good number of special features, which I think I went through when I actually watched it for the podcast. I don't remember too much about it now, but it is just fantastic. I love this film, and if you have not seen it, which by now I'm sure you've already heard of it and probably have already seen it, but if you've missed it for whatever reason, the hype is real. Check this one out. It's really good. Wes Craven's Shocker. There's so many Wes Craven films I've not seen, which I'm just kind of realizing now. Sleepaway Camp. I mean, it's not my favorite 80s slasher film, but it's fine. The End, of course, is what it's most known for, and apparently I haven't watched this version either. But so I have Sleepaway Camp 1, Sleepaway Camp 2, and Sleepaway Camp 3, which I've only seen the first one, and you can tell these are both still sealed. But yeah, so I got to get to these three eventually. Oh, I didn't even remember that I own this one on Blu-ray. So apparently I own the first Slumber Party Massacre on Blu-ray, which frankly I don't even know why. Whatever. I have the collection on DVD, and I own this one on Blu-ray. Sonny Boy, Squirm. Oh man, one of my favorite films, period. I love this movie, The Strangers. And I can't even believe I haven't opened this one yet, but whatever. I've seen this movie multiple times. I love it. It is one of the best home invasion films ever made. Fight me on it. I don't care. It's fantastic. And we actually reviewed, I don't remember if we reviewed this one or just the sequel on the podcast, but I know I rewatched it at that point and talked about it on the podcast. I love this movie so much. The sequel is different, but it's so good. I love it. Just some of the choices that they make, like with the cinematography and the music and the color palette that they use in the film. It's fantastic. If you've not seen The Strangers, you're missing out. If you've not seen the sequel and you have seen this one, you are also missing out. Watch these films. They're fantastic. Supernova. I think this one's a Shout Factory. Oh no, it is Scream Factory. Supernova. Swamp Thing, which is another one I bought from Barnes & Noble. Why am I buying movies from Barnes & Noble? I must have had a coupon or something, because they're too expensive at Barnes & Noble. I buy a lot of Criterion Collection from Barnes & Noble because they often have half-off sales, but not Scream Factory. Another one I didn't remember I owned, but Tales from the Crypt, Bordella of Blood. This one, no, we watched Demon Night. Tales from the Crypt, Demon Night, I watched for the podcast. I'm going to get this right here. I didn't love it, but I thought it was fine. I did love watching Tales from the Crypt when I was younger, probably too young to watch it at that point, but I was at my uncle's and he had HBO, so I was able to watch it. I watched a lot of things I probably shouldn't have watched late night at my uncle's on HBO, but that's neither here nor there. So Demon Night and Bordello of Blood. Jamie Lee Curtis in Terror Train. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2, which I like a lot more now than I did when I first watched this movie. There is a full series review of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies on Cinefessions.com, so you can check out my full thoughts there. But I like this movie. I think it's well done. It's just significantly different than the original, so it doesn't feel like the same movie, but that's fine. What it does well. John Carpenter's They Live, which is, this has this buy sticker on it, which is awesome. And, there's another one. I didn't flip the cover around. Let's take a look, because it's Rowdy. There he is. That's awesome. Rowdy Roddy Piper. Obviously, this is Carpenter's commentary on consumerism, and it's done so well. I love this movie. It was great when I first saw it. And I've only seen it, I think, twice now, because I watched it once for the podcast, and then again with, I believe, the commentary track for that same episode. But great movie. And this release is definitely worth owning. The Town That Dreaded Sundown. Now, here's another one. I prefer the remake over this one. This movie I thought I'd really enjoy, and I just don't love it. I don't like it all that much, to be honest. But the remake, on the other hand, I think is awesome. Another one of just simply one of the greatest horror films ever made. One of my favorite films, period. John Carpenter's The Thing. There's the original art there. I've owned this like 2 times on DVD. I have it over there somewhere down there on the Arrow imported Blu-ray, and then of course the Scream Factory Blu-ray. I have watched this version of it, and the picture quality is amazing. I have not compared it to the Arrow version yet, but I don't know how much better it can get. Frankly, this is an awesome release, and it has one of the best documentaries you will ever see specifically for this movie. It's called John Carpenter's The Thing, Terror Takes Shape. It is fantastic. It's a full-length documentary about the making of the film, and it's not to be missed if you like this movie. It's awesome. The Vampire Lovers, Village of the Damned, and this is the remake, so this is with Christopher Reeves. And another one that's not my favorite of Carpenter's films. I think it's okay, but it's one I really want to give another shot, because I think I've watched this only on TV. Obviously, this version is still sealed, and so I want to give it a shot all the way through, uncut, no commercials, and just see if I enjoy it any better. Getting to the end, last 3. So, we have the Vincent Price Collection number 1. This is volume 1. And then Vincent Price Collection volume 2. And one of these is quite rare. I think it might be the first one, but again, don't quote me on that. So we watched a ton of these because of the Raven cycle, or I forget what we called it, but it was the Edgar Allan Poe films that starred Vincent Price. We did a whole arc on the podcast about those, so we watched a lot here. So you have 7 movies on volume 2 and 6 movies on volume 1. These sets are awesome. They look amazing, and I think they're really good. There is a Vincent Price volume 3, which I don't own, because that came out after I really stopped collecting a lot of Scream Factory stuff, which for no real reason other than money. But yeah, so I need to pick that one up eventually. Last but not least, I wish it was a better one, because I don't really have anything to say about it, but it's Zombie Fight Club. It's another one I picked up with those cheap ones on that one sale a few years back. It was like $5 when it came out. So I picked it up because I figured, why the hell not? I love zombies, and it's called Zombie Fight Club, so it's probably going to be pretty fun. Woo! Okay, that was lengthy. So if you made it this far, thank you so much. I hope you guys enjoyed me talking about and showcasing my Scream Factory collection. Is there anything I'm missing? Let me know down in the comments below. What is must own that I do not own? There's 2 that I want to talk about that I absolutely must get. The first one is a film I hate. I hated it when I first saw it, but I want to own it on the Scream Factory Collector's Edition because I want to give it another shot. And that is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation. So this is the one that stars like Renee Zellweger and Matthew McConaughey. God, his name slipped my mind for a second there. And it's a terrible film. Whatever. If you like it, great. It's a terrible film. But I want to own it, and so that's one I want to buy. And then a film that I absolutely must own, which just came out recently, and I totally forgot it was coming out, My Bloody Valentine, the original. This is one of the most underrated slasher films of the 80s, in my opinion. I love it. I own it on like the regular Blu-ray, probably somewhere behind me there, or in one of my binders. But I want this edition because it's supposed to have the full uncut version of the film, which that original Blu-ray does not have, or that's what I'm led to believe, at least from what I've read. So those are 2 I know I want to pick up, but what else am I missing? I know I've kind of stopped following the Scream Factory releases for the most part. So is there something that came out in between whatever my most recent one was, probably something like Manhunter, and now is there something I'm missing that I need to pick up? Please let me know down in the comments below. And what should I prioritize? What have I talked about that I've not seen that I absolutely need to and should prioritize? Let me know that down in the comments below as well. I'd love to have more conversation with you guys down there. All right, so if you enjoyed this video, please, like always, consider subscribing to Cinefessions here on YouTube. But if not, thank you anyway for watching. I really appreciate you. So that's going to do it for today. I want to thank everyone for watching, and I'll catch you next time.